and it can be distracting. So if everybody could just turn off the ringers on their phone, that's great. For many of you, you know that September 1st starts the HCRA's new year. And with that, the dues are due. It's just $15 a year. It's cheap. There's a lot of other clubs that have that too, but the $15 for us pays for the website, which is excellent. Vanessa, W1IRL, does a phenomenal job there. It pays for club activities such as field day, our Zoom prescription, and a number of other things. And and we respect your decision to join us and participate. We have the Facebook page that is fairly active, and you know, the HCRA email list, and everybody's participation is important, but we need you to renew again. And if you find, like me, the years go by way too fast, I usually renew in either 2 and 3 year increments, so I don't have to worry about it for a couple of years. It just makes things simple and easy. You can renew since we're not meeting in person, you can renew at hcra.org via PayPal. You can also send a check in to the PO box and all. And speaking of meeting in person, we still haven't had anything, any information from the Holyoke Hospital. So the chances of being in person for the meetings, at least through the next few months, is kind of slim. So we'll continue to have our Zoom meetings, but I am in constant contact with the hospital, and they want to have meetings back in there, but the people who are in charge say not yet. It's still a very not a good COVID situation. But anyway, so dues are just $15 a year, whether you're a new member or renewing, and go to hcra.org and you can learn more about that. I'd like to remind everybody that our Monday night net on 10 meters is at 7 p.m. on 28,375. AA1WH is net control as W1NY, and everybody is invited, whether they're affiliated or not. It's just a general conversation meeting, and there's usually a subject going on. It's a lot of fun, and I think we cover pretty much like 40 miles around the Chicopee area. I know W1BOB checks in from Avon, Connecticut, and we've had some from further away too. And on an occasion when 10 meters opens up, we've had them from North and South Carolina, Alabama, and Michigan, and a few other places too. So it can be a lot of fun. So that's Monday nights, 7 p.m., 28,375. One of the other things that the club has done recently is we are now a Amazon Smile donation site. Thanks to Dwayne, our club treasurer, we are set up as a Amazon charity. So with directions that Ken put in the Zero Beat and what should be on the Facebook or the HCRA website anytime soon, it'll tell you how to set the HCRA as the place of donation. So every time you buy something on Amazon, 1/2 of 1% goes into a little pot, and then quarterly that money will get donated to the club. So for some of you that might purchase things very often, or some of you that purchase once in a while, set us up as your Amazon Smile donation site, and the club can benefit from that, and we appreciate that very much. Let's see, I don't see Aaron KF1G here. So, Ann, can you announce, is there anything new going on from this date forward with Franklin County? When's the next meeting and so on? Maybe not.
The next meeting is the second meeting Monday of the month, and the breakfast is the Saturday before that. And I can't give us the topic of the meeting just right now. So it's on the website.
Okay, and the website is?
SCARZ.org.
Okay. So Franklin County is about 60 miles north of here. We've been sharing activities with them, and we support them. They support us. We share a lot of members in between. So if you go to fcarc.org, you can learn about their latest meetings and activities. And speaking of activities, back 2 weeks ago, this coming Sunday, we did an activity with them on Mount Sugarloaf called Picnic and Radios. There were between 30 and 40 people present. We had some technical talking going on. We had 2 or 3 QRP rigs set up. There was a lot of conversation between everybody and a lot of good food. And it was a lot of fun. It was a beautiful day, and the views from up on Mount Sugarloaf were gorgeous. And it was a lot of fun. Everybody enjoyed it, and we hope to repeat it again next year. And like all the activities that the clubs do, we ask that only vaccinated people come to them. We'd like to keep everybody safe and healthy as much as possible. And going on with that, we have. I'm sorry, what was that, Ann?
Also, last Sunday, some members from HCRA came up and helped us out with Will Bike for Food, where we did radio.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, that's one of the things that Franklin County does that HCRA doesn't do is public service. So anything that they do or they have coming up, we try to support. A lot of people are interested in public service and emergency communications, and it's a great way to get some training and such. So you can go to their site and learn more. And as we find out about things, they'll be publicized on the email list in Zero Beat and the Facebook page. Coming up December 6th, the HCRA is sponsoring a holiday party. We're going to be at the Steaming Tender in Palmer. We have it reserved between 6:30 and 9:30 p.m. The menu is excellent. It's publicized in this last issue of Zero Beat, which you can get on the hcra.org website. Cost is $25 per person. If you've never been to Steaming Tender, the food is really good. The atmosphere is fantastic, and the company is even better. It's in an old train station. There are active railroad tracks on either side, so it's not unusual to have trains go by. The atmosphere is fantastic, and we've done holiday parties there in the past, and it's worked out very well, and everybody has a lot of fun. So hopefully you'll join us. Again, tickets are $25 per person. We ask that you send a check-in with your menu options to the HCRA PO box and reserve your space now. I think the deadline to sign up is November 22nd, which is the Monday before Thanksgiving. And it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to have door prizes. The Franklin County Club is invited to join us. And like I said, it's going to be a lot of fun. We had great times at past parties at the Steaming Tender. Let's see here, what else is going on? So are there any other announcements or anything else going on? Yeah, Charlie, go ahead.
Larry. Question.
Oh, yes.
On the, do we send in a check and a note that just says the check's for the
holiday party?
And
yes.
You're just going to send you'll send the tickets when they get printed?
We're not going to do tickets. We're going to, we'll probably send an email confirming it, and we'll have a list at the door, so we won't have any gate crashers. We're not going to actually mail out tickets, and when you arrive, you'll get a raffle ticket.
Okay, I'll get one out to you.
Charlie?
Thank you, Larry. The other Larry. Thank you. Any of you that are involved in emergency communications and the Aries nets has probably noticed in the last week or so that I've been given a slight promotion. Thank you, Bob. I am now Assistant Section Emergency Coordinator and responsible for the nets in the area in Western Mass. And one of the things that we've got going is we lost Joe earlier this year, KB1 WVO, to retirement, and we're losing 2 other net control stations, Rich, KC1AEO, and Marcel, A1WH. They're both retiring because they've got so much stuff going on, which I understand. But that's going to leave us short of net control stations. So we have a big drive going on right now. If you're interested in becoming a net control station, learning how to operate a net, we'll train you. All you need is a technician license because it's all UHF, VHF. So we will bring you on board, give you the training, give you the preambles, and take good care of you. That's my responsibility now. And along with that, Aries in this area is also going to be expanding some nets. We're going to be doing a lot of 3 digital options, WinLink and JSA call, and one other one I don't remember right now. But we're going to be adding some digital modes as far as practice. And we're also going to be doing a probably once a month net as far as if you've never signed into a net, how do you do it? And it's going to be sort of like the HCRA new members that you did for a little while. And this will be the same thing for people who want to get involved in nets and see how you sign on, what it means when we say first letter, it's a suffix of alpha through delta. How do you interpret that? And what are the protocols and what's the, how does it all operate? So we want to do that in a safe environment, probably not on the 9.4, probably use one of the other TOM repeaters so we can have it sort of set off to the side and give people practice without being exposed to hundreds of listening ears or anybody else. So give them a little bit more confidence. So that's about what I want to say. If you're interested in becoming an NCS, contact myself, or you can still contact Rich and Marcel. They're going to still hang on till the end of the year, which I really appreciate. And also Gary, KC1JZR, and Danny, K1VWQ are also still there. So I'm down to, after the end of the year, only 3 net controls for 3 nets. So we don't get any time off that way. So if you're interested, let me know, or let one of the other net controls know, and we'll train you and provide everything you need. Thank you, Larry.
Okay, that's great, Charlie. Can you write something up for Zero Beat?
Yes, I can.
Okay, good.
Yeah, this hit sort of like last week, and trying to wrap my head around it and get everything going, and yeah, it's been interesting.
Good, good. Well, good luck in getting new recruits. There's lots of new members, lots of new hams, and maybe explain what net control is and all that, and get some new hams at least interested maybe in checking in as a starting point. So
Yep,
good
definitely.
luck with that. Thank you very
Yeah.
much.
Hey, Larry.
And yeah,
May I ask the group to use regarding the holiday party, if just to get an idea of who may be coming in this group or who is considering coming, if they would, if our members would reach down to reactions and just raise their hand, just if they think they might be coming to that holiday party. We want to try to get sort of a early reading. I see Najim, and we've got a few of the electronic hands up. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We got about, let's see. How many are you counting, Larry?
I know we had like 28 at the last meeting of people and their spouses and such. So at one time, they've come down, but I think we had like 6 or 8 here, Gary. So
yeah, it seems that way. So this is good. So I think we could also send out, also in our lists a reminder and surveys, because it is a great time at the steaming tender, and we always enjoyed it when we were there in the past. So, and the drinks are good too.
sounds good. Sounds good. Okay. And one last thing too is if you haven't noticed, Zero Beat has been phenomenal the last couple of months since Ken took over. This is, I think, the 3rd issue where we're at 25 pages. So he's been doing a great job, and we thank you, Ken, KD1KU. And if you have anything to contribute, anything to write, he's the guy you want to get it to. And as somebody who's done the newsletter in the past, the newsletter isn't anything without your contribution. So the more everybody contributes, the better the newsletter is. Okay, so let's move on here. I'd like to introduce Fred Kemmerer, AB1AOC. Fred has been president of the Nashua Amateur Radio Society. He's a very active operator from HF to microwave in all aspects of ham radio. And Fred's going to talk to us about bringing new people into ham radio, mentoring them, getting more people to come into amateur radio and stay in amateur radio, and in the process, how to make us all better hams and make the clubs a better club. So over to you, Fred. I'll share the screen
Get
here.
myself here. There we go. Thank you, Larry, and thanks for hosting me tonight. I spent a little bit of time looking at your website earlier today, and I feel like I might be talking to the pros here a little bit on mentoring. You guys are already doing a lot of good stuff. I particularly liked your manual for newly licensed amateur radio operators. Haven't seen that too much. I think that's a great resource. I don't know who created that. But
Mostly Jeff and I did that.
Okay, well, that goes right at a lot of what's needed to mentor people. So what I'm going to do tonight is I'm going to share some of the programs that I've been involved in, but I want to preface this with two things. First, please jump in and ask questions or make comments about anything you see as we go here. We'll stop and talk about it. This works best if you all kind of help me find the right direction for the conversation here. And then the second thing I'd say about mentoring is there is no magic bullet for mentoring except to do something that you truly love to do. And that enthusiasm and your passion for what you're trying to share with other less experienced people will come through and motivate them to get excited about amateur radio and doing the thing you're trying to share. So with that, I think I'm going to share my whole desktop because that usually goes better. And now you see my messy desktop. All right, give me a thumbs up if you all can see this. Okay, we all right? Good, excellent. All right. So the picture on the front here is a group of middle school kids about to talk to the International Space Station with amateur radio. We'll come back to this, but this is certainly one mentoring project, a fairly big one that you can do that can have a big impact on a lot of dimensions. And you know, there's a real need for mentoring in our hobby. My club teaches license classes. We teach usually 7 a year. We teach Tech General and Extra every spring and every fall. Then we do 1 or maybe 2 for middle and high school students that are kind of aimed at just helping those folks get their techs. About 3 years ago, we always collect a lot of data on the folks that we serve. Now our classes are typically 2 full days, or in the case of Extra, 3 full days long. So we get some opportunity to get to know these folks a little bit and keep track of them. And we've licensed or upgraded about 370 people. So our sample size is a decent size. What we found is only 25% of the people that we helped get a tech license would be on the air a year later. And when we first discovered that, we thought, man, we're really doing something wrong. So I talked to folks down at ARL headquarters and people like Gordon West who do a lot of this. And what I was hearing is, no, they thought we were doing really good. They thought the real number was more like 15%. So we started one of our mentoring programs called Ham Bootcamp. You may have heard about it. It was in QST a while back, and we've done it a bunch of times. We've started it after our license classes for just our license class grads. So we maybe had 15, 20 people in it to begin with till we learned how to do it. And then when COVID hit, we took it online via Zoom. The first one we did, I think we had like 260 people register, which we thought was fantastic. And we said, well, if it was that popular, let's try to get, maybe we could get 50 or 100. The second time we did it, we had 480 people register. Now, what you're seeing here is some data from that second class, so pretty good sample set. What does it, and this is a basic get on the air, build a simple station, program radios, learn to make a QSO course, nothing fancy here. So what does it tell us? That some 60% of the people who signed up to spend a day doing that had a general, advanced, or extra class license. What that told us is that that there's a big need to improve our ability as hams to mentor other hams, because there are a lot of people out there looking for help on how to do really basic stuff in amateur radio. Now, my club, the Nashua Area Radio Society, had kind of like many clubs gone through a pretty deep cycle of decline. You know, we were down to a point where my predecessor, I guess 7 years or 8 years ago or so, had to cancel a field day because he couldn't get enough people to participate to do it. This is the same club that did a 20+ alpha field day at one point in time. It has a long history there. About that time, about 6 years ago or so, maybe 7, we rededicated the club to be about bringing new people into amateur radio and mentoring and helping hams of all skill levels learn how to do stuff. As I sit with you today, we have 440 members. We're the largest club in New England at this point. And we bring in 1 to 2 new members without doing any recruiting just about every week. And that is all of a result of a real strong focus on mentoring. So the stuff that you all are doing, and I'd be curious to hear if you feel it's helping you bring new people into your club as well. I bet it is. But investing in doing mentoring work will really go a long way to engage a lot of people. And there are tons of people out there who are looking for it. So some of the things that we've done, when we first started to kind of rebuild our club, we started out teaching license classes. And about a year in, we had almost 100 members and a makeup of a club that had about 70% of the people licensed less than a year, which was kind of a unique situation. And so one of the first programs that we built was something called Tech Night, which is basically, and I think you do some of this as well. I noticed on your website there were some articles around a learning session that you all did. I don't know how regularly you do that, but I think that's along the same lines as what we did here. We first brainstormed up a whole pile of topics, everything from simple stuff like, you know, how to program a radio or get a basic VHF station for repeaters up, all the way up to some pretty advanced things from our folks who'd been at it longer, like satellites or moon bounce or how Yagi works and so on. And to give you a feel for what these sessions are, I have a picture of one of them in the lower right there, where one of our members went to Home Depot, cleaned out the plumbing department, and made a 2-meter, put together one piece at a time Yagi that he could transmit on. And then he has in his hand a dipole with a light bulb on it, where you can kind of move it around that antenna as he adds elements to it and see the antenna form a pattern and generate gain and front to back and all that kind of stuff. So our tech nights are a second meeting. We hold it every month, and it's all member driven, where a member comes in or a couple people come in and they talk about how to do something in ham radio that people are interested in. And it's very effective. We record them all and put them all online along with the PowerPoints and stuff. I think at this stage we have about 125 hours of ham radio training on, I don't know, probably 100 topics. So very easy thing to do. And I think a nice thing about something like a tech night is it not only benefits new folks, but it benefits all of you who have been at this for a while. I'm sure there are people in your group that know how to do stuff that a lot of other people would be interested in learning. And it's kind of a great way to keep the hobby fresh and exciting for everybody, I think. So a little more about Ham Bootcamp. As I said, this is a program that we created to try to just get people who have a license or have recently upgraded, or maybe not so recently upgraded in the case of some of those extra folks, to put a basic station together and learn how to do ham radio. So one of the things we found that with new hams, it's really basic stuff. A lot of new hams that get their tech ticket are concerned that they don't know how to make a QSO right. So they're afraid to actually hit the push to talk on the radio and start making contacts. It's kind of like a mix of mic fright and the fact that they're not really sure how to, start a contact, when to how to turn contacts over, when to ID, how to end a contact, how to join a three-way. What you're doing to try to train folks to check into a net is right at this kind of a problem. And you can see on the left there was one of the live ones we did. I think that was at Ham Exposition when it was still in Boxborough, where we basically have a whole bunch of hams that are new sitting around a table with HTs, and we're going to have them make 70 centimeter simplex contacts with each other. We're going to simulate 3- and 4-way calls. We're going to have them check into a net and answer a question and check out. and all the kinds of basic stuff that hams need to learn. On the right, at that same session, one of our members is explaining how to put together a basic HF station with a 20-meter dipole, 100-watt radio, how to hook a key and a headset up, how to connect it to the computer and get the logger working, all the basic kinds of stuff that a new ham needs to learn how to do. This is the typical format. This thing has kind of evolved to include two parts, a part that's aimed at techs and people who aren't licensed yet, and then a second part that's aimed at people who want to do HF. I know some of these charts are probably hard to read. I'll drop a link to a PDF where you can download all of this if you want at the end here. And you can see for the HF track, it's pretty basic stuff. How to put a station together, how to put an antenna up, how to make a DX contact, how to do FT8, how to go about learning Morse code, QSLing, and so on. For the techs, we cover how to make a QSO, how to program your radio. We cover Echolink. Fox hunting, we usually do a little bit on handheld satellite contacts, which is something that a lot of techs are interested in. Now, obviously, this is a pretty big program. We've been working on this for like 3 years, but even if you take one or two of these topics and sponsor, a focus session on like, how can I put up a 20-meter dipole and get a basic HF station up? Or, how do I go about programming my radio? Or how do I use Echolink? Or like what you all are doing to try to help people to learn how to check into a net. All of these topics will make a great mentoring session. And if you publicize it on your website, maybe through your Facebook pages and so on, send a note to Phil there, who I believe is on here, to put it on the website for the New England division. You'll find that a lot of people that you didn't know about that are already licensed are going to turn out for that kind of help. And it's a great way that you can, kind of build a relationship with people as well. So some other activities that I've been involved in have been a lot of fun. This one was something one of our members suggested. Now, my club has quite a few people in it, including Anita and I, who are involved in HF contesting at different levels or maybe VHF contesting. So anyway, our member said, why don't you stand down in a DX contest one time, invite all of the new folks that have gotten their general upgrades in for a weekend and show them how to work a DX contest, and in the process, see if you can't earn the club a DXCC. So we did that. We started out on Friday evening before the contest started, trying to train folks on how to use the station, how the contest exchange worked. A little bit about sort of, where to point the directional antenna when to work stuff and so on, how the logger worked. And then we turned them loose. Some people only did an hour or two. Some people did 3-4 hour shifts and, got pretty serious about it. My station here, Anita's and my station, are such that we can have 2 transmitters on the air at the same time. So we did a multi-one kind of deal. And we pretty much spent the whole weekend just helping the new folks work DX. By the end, they had worked, I think, 125 countries or something, and earned their DXCC, and they were really jazzed. The next time we did a tech night that was about putting an HF station together, all those same people came back, and they were all interested in how they could get, a basic station together so they could have fun in this kind of stuff too. Doesn't necessarily need to be a big station. For those of you, I think we had done CQ Worldwide DX, which was probably arguably one of the biggest, if not the biggest DX contest in the world. And in a contest like that, you've got a lot of huge stations at high power. So even if you have a 100-watt radio and a dipole or a multi-band wire antenna, you can have a lot of fun in a contest like this. And sponsoring an activity for your new hams, or maybe folks who just are struggling to get started with HF a little bit, could be a great way to get those people jazzed. Give a tour of your stations, let them look at the equipment, answer questions about how to put antennas up and so on. It makes a great mentoring event. I believe you all are into 13 colonies. Am I right about that? I know Larry is. And 13 colonies is actually a pretty good mentoring activity. One of the things I love to do, I'm the state manager for K2K New Hampshire. Usually don't do this on the first day of the event because the pileups are a little brutal then. It's not necessarily training ground, but 2 or 3 days in, when things settle down a little bit, I'll usually invite some new hams into my station to work with me. I'll usually start them out logging while I operate. so they can kind of get to hear call signs and how the pileup works and all that kind of stuff. And then I'll usually switch paces with them, and I'll let them operate as K2K, 13 colonies, and I'll log for them. And then if they get really good at it, I'll hand over the mouse and the keyboard and walk out of the room and take the training wheels off. Not all of them get to that point. Some do. But, you know, and Larry, I know will say this, it's not hard at all to make 100 contacts an hour in that event. And so, you know, if somebody puts in 2 or 3 hours, they probably get more experience on the air in those 2 or 3 hours than they're going to get in months at their home station. Again, a great way to train HF operators to get people really comfortable and having them start to develop their style of you know, running pileups and that kind of stuff, which is pretty important. So all easy things to do and all great ways to mentor, I think. Field day, and I can see you guys do some pretty big field days. You may already be into mentoring as a field day activity, but pretty much for our field days, they're all about the new folks. If a new person comes out and helps us set up our station, we typically will put towers up. The field day you're seeing here was a 10 alpha 4 tower affair, so we definitely need some help to do that. But if folks come out and they're new, we're completely okay with a brand new person that's never done field day before taking 20 sideband at 4 o'clock. And what we'll do if they do that is we'll sit down with them and we'll work with them and make sure they have a good experience. They do well. Hasn't really hurt our scores. We've been typically 1 or 2 in every category, any category we've entered since we've been doing this. And I have to tell you a story about how this works out. The young girl there on the left, she's Abby Fincham, AB1BY, and her brother there, Connor, KC1GGX, who's a general. Abby earned her extra class license on her 13th birthday. She's a very enthusiastic young ham. And I remember her very first field day well. It was a 2-tower deal. We were probably 6 or 8 alpha in that one. And we got the first tower in one of the HF stations up on Friday night. And Abby asked if she could try operating the station because she'd never had a chance to use a directional antenna. So we turned her loose. She started at 8 o'clock, and I think she went till midnight or 1 in the morning that night. And she was so jazzed. The next day at 2 o'clock, she jumped on the sideband stations and she never stopped for 24 hours. I came into her tent, the tent she was in on Sunday morning at about 8:30. She was on 75 sideband, which of course it was closed. When I came in the tent, she looked up at me and growled because she had 0 sleep and said, "I need a new band. I worked everybody on this one." Which is exactly the kind of attitude you want your young ham to have halfway through field day, I think. Abby, in the field day I'm going to show you the video about here, was kind of the station orchestrator for digital. And in that field day, we had Matt Strelo, KC1XX, and some of his top CW operators. Now, these are world-class contact people running our CW stations. And Abby got in a competition with them between FT8. Abby basically ran 3 stations by herself overnight on Saturday. She went SO3R, and her team matched the scores of 3 of the best CW operators in the world. And I have a wonderful picture of Abby standing over Matt Strelo and gloating when she was actually ahead of them score-wise on Saturday afternoon. So getting the young folks to be the stars and the new hams to be the stars of your field day can really be a lot of fun. More importantly, it makes a really positive impression on your public visitors. Now, I'm going to show you a video of a 10 alpha field day that we did pre-COVID. And we got lucky and had a TV crew from WMUR come out and do a spot on our field day. And what I want you to think about as you look at this is, what kind of impression did we make on the general public about what ham radio is and why it's important? So here we go. Let's watch the video.
While practicing for a possible emergency.
Next at 6, how these amateur radio operators are getting ready for any disaster.
Amateur radio operators across the country and Canada set up radio equipment this weekend for an event called Field Day.
And while it is a contest, it's also a chance for operators to practice their emergency response capabilities so they're ready to provide communications if a disaster strikes. Dozens took part at Hudson Memorial School, working completely off the grid, simulating a real emergency.
What we've taught some of the kids in the school here about is how you actually track and talk and do communications through a satellite in space.
One of the main things we like to do is really further the education of STEM curriculum in local schools. This has been a partnership with the Hudson Middle School.
Tango, Radio Tango.
Trained some as young as 12 years old. That is incredible. Good for them.
And they actually started setting up yesterday. They went 24 hours. So in that kind of unsettled weather that we had, they were still going. So
Wow.
pretty impressive.
Good for them. That's
Might be a little wet.
So imagine now, I don't know how many people saw this. I would guess it was in the tens of thousands at least. It was on the 6 o'clock news on Field Day Sunday. But, you know, if we're going to protect our hobby, protect our spectrum, get bills passed that actually make a difference in protecting our rights for antennas, we're going to need a lot of public support. And focusing on your new folks at an event like Field Day and getting press coverage, you know, newspaper people, community TV folks will often come out. That can go a long way, not only to getting the new folks excited, but more importantly, getting people aware of amateur radio and building that public support that we so desperately need. All right. The next phase of this is going to be a little bit more about young people. So maybe I'll stop here. Does anybody have any questions or comments or thoughts on anything we've looked at so far?
With your ham boot camp, how do you get the club volunteers to do the teaching?
Well, you know, I get that question asked every time, Larry. So the thing I would say is every program you're seeing here, with possibly the exception of the ISS contact, was started by no more than 4 people. And, you know, Ham Bootcamp, when we started, was 10 people in my kitchen who had just graduated from license class, with 3 of us showing us how to do amateur radio stuff. And we got enough positive feedback that other folks in our group saw that it was exciting and fun and that we were helping people, and they wanted to join in. So the best message I can give you, and I know sometimes it's hard to get folks to raise their hand to do these projects, as soon as you think you have a good idea, sign up 2 or 3 helpers and try it. You're probably going to not have a great result the first couple times. Start small. Make sure you listen to the people that you're trying to help and ask them, you know, honestly, what worked well? What could we have done better? What didn't work well? You might need, most of these projects that you're seeing here took 2 or 3 tries for us to kind of get right. You know, Ham Bootcamp, I think it was the 4th one, was the first big one. And by that point in time, if you look closely here, the whole thing is taught by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people. So don't necessarily think that you need to have an army to do these things. Just gather up a few people and get started. You know, we have a term we call it learning to fail fast. Well, lots of these programs you're seeing here, especially the ones that I'm going to talk about next that we did in schools, which is a hard place to get into with amateur radio. Some of these things we tried 6, 7 times before we found a combination that would work. But the key thing is, as soon as somebody's willing to you know, raise their hand and say, we should do this, start counting hands. Find 3 or 4, go out, schedule something, don't overthink it, try it, listen to the people you're trying to help, and that's how you build great programs. Cool. Other questions or comments? All right, let's talk about some other things we can do. As far as engaging younger folks, one activity that's worked really well for us is ARL Kids Day. It happens a couple times a year, and it's all about getting young people on the air. There are also programs like Jamboree on the air that the Scouts do that are similar to this. You know, if you build an event around this, you open up one of your member stations, maybe you run a fox hunt along with it, maybe you play around with Morse code, or you know, maybe if you do that satellite thing, you go out with a handheld satellite antenna and help the kids talk through a satellite or something. You can make a nice event out of something like ARL Kids Day. Abby, who's that 13-year-old extra, got involved in amateur radio through Kids Day, and she now sponsors that with all of her friends. You can see this is one of our Kids Day groups. She made up plaques or certificates, I guess you'd call them, that the kids could take home, and she ran the thing, used our station to do it. So those can be great activities. There's also, if you're into contesting, there's something called the ARL Rookie Roundup. That is a beginner's contest. You either have to be licensed less than 3 years, or if you're doing a mode that you've not made a contact ever in, you can do it as well. There's a sideband one, a RIDI digital one, and a CW version of this contest, and they're great fun. So I have a video here of Abby and her dad doing the rookie roundup. Abby's, by the way, a much better sideband operator than her dad is at this point. Dad is logging for her, and he's having some trouble getting the call signs in the log. So I think you'll kind of enjoy watching Abby run the pileup. So here we go.
QRZ, November 1, Foxtrot Delta.
Kilo Echo 0, Mike X-ray, November.
Could the Kilo Echo 0 station come again?
Kilowatt Echo 0, Foxtrot Mexico X-ray,
QSL, Kilo Echo 0, Foxtrot Mexico X-ray. This is November 1, Foxtrot Delta. My name is Abby, Alpha Bravo Bravo Yankee, 16 November Hotel. Could I get your name, year licensed, and state, please?
So, the name here is Reese Romeo Hotel Yankee. Year Echo.
You know, I've had the opportunity to make a lot of contacts. I've made over 100,000 contacts in the last 10 years in all kinds of different ways. And, you know, to me, sitting in the room and watching 20 like this get made means more to me than making the next 1,000 myself. It really does. If you invest some time with sponsoring these kinds of activities, I think the memories that you'll come away with will be some of the best ones you'll have with amateur radio. It really can be a lot of fun. All right, so let's talk about getting into schools. Have you all done any work in schools with kids or anything like that? This is all new stuff for you all? Anybody? No? Okay. Well, you probably have all heard how difficult this is, and I won't suggest that it's not a challenging thing to do, but we have found our way here into about 5 schools. In some of the schools that we're involved in, we're actually being invited in to teach class for credit about amateur radio. And so I'm going to tell you kind of the story of how we got there in a couple. It starts out with usually extracurricular activities. Middle schools, for example, often have something called Pie Night, which is a STEM science fair type of activity where, you know, some of the teachers do things, parents do things, and they'll often invite folks in like your amateur radio club. So what we did at Pie Night, we go in and set up a trifold that kind of explained a little bit about what you could do with amateur radio. We had fox hunt gear there. We actually hit a transmitter like in their auditorium and had some HTs the kids could chase around and try to find it. We had some Morse code activities where the kids could send and receive their names and simple phrases. I can run my station remotely, so we brought a laptop in and let them listen to HF and make some HF contacts through the computer and the Wi-Fi in the school. We had our high altitude balloon stuff there, which I'll talk about. And the kids really loved it. When we do these things, we're usually the most popular thing there, or one of them, because we're very hands-on with this stuff. And more importantly, we get to spend time meeting and talking to the kids' parents and the teachers in the schools. And what we try and do there is we try to understand what their curriculum is like relative to physics, electronics, geography, sometimes social studies. And we try to talk about how amateur radio experiences might enhance what they're already trying to teach. And that's really the key to finding your way in the school. You can't go at this from the notion that says, I'm going to go in the school and get all the kids licensed. You may do that, but you're never going to have that chance unless you fit whatever you're trying to do with amateur radio into something that supports what they're already trying to teach their kids. That's kind of the key to this. Where that went for us in a couple of our schools is we got invited into after school clubs. One school had a STEM club, another school had an electronics club. And we went in there and we had provided equipment that they could use to build kits. In the bottom there, you're seeing a team of high school students at one high school work on a 40-meter CW transmitter kit that's powered by a 9-volt battery. They're very cheap. I think they're called Pixie kits. At the time we did that, they cost about $15. And we taught the kids how to solder and how to go about, you know, doing identifying the right components and putting the kit together, how to work as teams. And then when we were done, we had a Morse code competition where the teams, one of them used the kit they built to transmit. The other student in the team, we gave them a buddy pole on the other side of their classroom and a KX3, so they had a decent receiver. And they give them a little bit of Morse code training, a couple sessions in their STEM clubs. And the idea was to first get the simple phrase across accurately, and then whoever did it the fastest won. Now at this point, one of those high schools got their kids out of class a whole day to go through this competition. So now we're starting to get classroom time, right? The teachers are seeing the value of the activities that we're doing. And I have to tell you a funny story here. One of the kids, actually the pair at the bottom there, the girl on the left is Aya. Her name is Aya, and she managed to head copy their phrase 12 words a minute perfectly, first try. So we looked at this. Now, we'd only spent about 3 hours teaching these kids Morse code, so we figure either we're the biggest geniuses in history of teaching Morse code, which of course wasn't true, or there's something going on here. So we kind of pulled this Aya aside, and we found out that her and her partner for 2 years have been tapping out Morse code when they were bored in class, making fun of their teachers, their fellow students, what they were going to do after school and so on. So they were kind of ringers. But what we did find in this process actually is that middle school and high school kids are actually pretty interested in learning Morse code. They kind of think it's cool. You know, it's sort of a secret code that they can use to communicate. Their hearing is perfect. They learn quickly, and they can actually pick it up pretty fast. And I'll show you in a minute here, we kind of created a follow-on kit building activity that's focused around Morse code that we've done very widely. So now we got to that point. The next thing we did is we said, okay, you know, we're starting to understand what these kids are learning about in class. Let's create an amateur radio based project that's all about the physics and so on that they're learning. So what were they learning? They're learning about electromagnetic waves. They're learning about the atmosphere, weather, jet streams. They're learning a little bit about space. So we said, okay, let's put together a high altitude balloon project where we can talk about all of those topics as how they relate to launching and tracking a weather balloon. And then we'll have the kids use simulators and a little bit of math to kind of program the flight for their balloon and predict where it's going to go. And then they can take it out and fly it and track it with amateur radio and see how well what they predicted lines up with what they thought was going to happen. So we did that. And the balloon platform, you can see there's a picture of me holding it and one of the teachers holding the balloon ready to launch it. Has a 2-meter APRS transmitter on it. And, you know, we can teach about all the stuff that goes into that, how the jet stream works, buoyancy, parachute dynamics. We even teach the kids how to file a flight plan with the FAA. They go out, they fly their balloon, and they track it, and then they do a book report to explain why it didn't exactly do what they thought it would. So I have a video of one of these flights that give you a feel for what this is. I'm not going to play the whole thing. I'm going to kind of skip around just to give you a feel for what this is, but it's a lot of fun. So with that, let's look at a high altitude balloon carrying amateur radio. So this thing is lightweight. It also carries cameras. There's the 2-meter APRS transmitter. There's a GPS on it. It is the source for a pressure and temperature sensor. It goes up, the balloon breaks, it comes down on a parachute.
Send them again so that they go on and on and on.
APRS telemetry.
There we are.
Balloon N1FD-11. See it there? So we know that transmitter.
And there's the scientist inflating the weather balloon. Now you're seeing the camera on the balloon.
Go, Brian. Go, Brian.
Carries 2 cameras, one that looks out and one that looks up at the balloon. The flight line that you see in the upper right there is about 40 feet long. And the balloon's about 6 to 8 feet at launch and grows to over 30 feet before it bursts. And the telemetry that you're seeing that flash up here is coming from the balloon. We get from the GPS altitude, direction, and speed, as well as the exact location. And then it also carries a computer that gives temperature and pressure readings. And all this stuff comes down on 2-meter APRS every minute. So let's kind of skip ahead here, and you get a chance. The kids get to experience kind of what it's like at the edge of space here. So let me just skip ahead here, and we'll start at 70,000 feet. You can see the balloon's already grown quite a bit. We're pretty much at the top of the troposphere, so the normal scattering of the sun's light isn't there anymore. It's basically just black. The sun is, of course, very bright. 90,000 feet. The temperature in the troposphere does some interesting things, which is one of the things we teach about. It goes down and then comes back up again. And actually, we keep going high enough, it'll drop a second time and come up again. These flights will typically go over 100,000 feet, about 20 plus miles. And at first, the pressure will be less than 1/10 of 1% of ground, close to vacuum. So here's a video of the balloon about to burst at about 21 miles. See, it's actually growing. It's just on the verge of breaking. So this gives the students a sense of what it looks like at the top of the normal atmosphere. You're not really quite in space here yet, but you're close to a vacuum. One of the STEM learning things that we do, because the pressure's so low here for the first few seconds, the balloon basically is falling in close to a vacuum, and we have the students use the data from the telemetry on APRS to measure the acceleration due to gravity in a vacuum. And that's an example of how we tie this into some of the STEM stuff that the kids are learning. Let me just skip ahead here a little bit. Here we're on our way down, the parachute's open. And while this is descending, we're tracking it with our GPSs and APRS. This is typical telemetry coming off the balloon. Here we're just about to land in a pond in Maine. And you can see we've got our altitude, speed, direction, GPS coordinates, temperature, pressure, all that kind of stuff. And this is what the typical track looks like. Every one of those dots was one of the telemetry bursts that happened a minute apart. And in this particular flight, the students had modeled this path and had a path almost identical to what they modeled with the simulators. Okay. So again, you can kind of see how we make a whole sort of a science-based and physics-based learning program out of it.
So here we are, out in the kayak, and here is the hat, and it looked like it hit a tree because there's...
There you can see a good view of the cameras on the platform and so on. Also, our patented lightweight flotation devices. Those are pipe insulation, again, from Home Depot, that you would use to insulate your plumbing in your basement, make great pontoons. If you're going to do this in New England, you need two things. You need a kayak or a boat, and you need somebody who can climb a tree, because you're going to use both of them to get your hat back.
You can see some branches down there.
There's the APRS transmitter laying there, still bursting out positions. Interestingly enough, the way we track this down after it's on the ground is we use fox hunting techniques to track down the APRS signal. You can usually walk right up to wherever the balloon actually has landed. So, great project, pretty advanced deal, and but something that you could definitely work your way up to. Now, the schools that I've been involved in, I got a call from the principal of one of the schools that we did that balloon launch in at the beginning of the last fall term. And the principal said, would you teach a 2-hour class as an elective for credit about amateur radio? We have enough kids that we think are interested. So I did that, and it was so popular that I got a call at the end of the first one saying, could you teach another one? So all in that school, we ran about 100 kids through different topics on how radios work, how the radio spectrum's laid out. We did samples of DX contacts on HF so folks could see what that was like, space comms and digital and all the rest. So again, if you invest in a relationship with a school over the long haul, eventually you'll be one of the teachers, or a good chance of help the teachers anyway. I'm probably the biggest project that you can do if you, this is not a small one, but it will guarantee you a very strong relationship with any school you do it with, is to help a school contact astronauts on the space station via amateur radio. There's an organization called AnJss that arranges these contacts, and for a school to get one, they have to develop a proposal that includes partnering with a local amateur radio club and bringing a significant amount of space science and amateur radio into their school curriculum. So this is kind of like a fast track into a school. The application process starts about a year ahead of the contact, where, for example, AnJss is accepting applications now for contacts in the second half of next year. And only a fraction of the schools that do these will get them. And the ones that typically get them are the ones that have a strong relationship and a great education plan around amateur radio. I've been involved both first as a club partner in 2 of them, and then I've become part of the AnJss program where I now mentor schools all around the world and help them to make these contacts. I'm also one of the AnJss ground stations. Have you all ever been involved? Anybody ever been involved in one of these or seen one? Looks like Gary has. Yep. So Gary, you know the drill. These things are pretty amazing. So what I'm going to do, I have another video here that's pretty heavily edited that shows one of these contacts. If I get my computer to let me play it, and this will be pretty much the end of this. Come on, computer. Here we go. Now, these contacts typically last about 10 minutes to 15 minutes. The students will get to each ask 1 or 2 questions. Maybe 10 of them will. We're only going to do the highlights here, but it should give you a feel for what this is like. And again, what I also want you to note is the positive impression that we make by doing this on a large number of people on the value of amateur radio as a learning tool.
Hudson Memorial School, this is a very exciting and unique opportunity for us. Okay? This is a once-in-a-lifetime chance. Once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for the students of Hudson Memorial School to watch us make contact with astronauts from NASA in outer space on the International Space Station.
All right. As Mr. Bowen said, this is a truly unique event that you guys get to be a part of. And he did the welcomes to all the people that are here in the room. But I'm going to welcome all the elementary students that are probably watching us on live feed right now. The logo over to the far right is the Nashua Area Radio Society. They have been a huge part of this. Without them in this part, there would be no contact for you. The amount of hours, we probably can't even put together the amount of hours that the folks of this club put in to make sure that everything's happening. Also, they want to encourage and help people to become licensed and active in the amateur radio service. And you will see that over the course of the year, there are 2 students that are asking questions here that now have their amateur radio license because
Ryan got his extra at 12 years old. Kenzie's our best piece of license work. We got her an extra class license at 10 years old.
Wow.
Of them.
1 minute to contact. The antennas are beginning to position. If you look at the video on the upper right of the screen, you can see the antennas tracking in on the ISS. November Alpha 1 Sierra Sierra, November Alpha 1 Sierra Sierra. This is November 1 Foxtrot Delta, over. Hi, hello Serena. This is November 1 Foxtrot Delta. We copy you fine. We've all been working very hard for about a year to prepare for this day, and we very much appreciate you taking the time to answer our questions. Are you ready for the students' questions? Over.
This is Ryan, KC1 KJS. What does it feel like when exiting the atmosphere? Over.
It's amazing. When our rocket lit and we knew those engines were going, we knew we were going somewhere really, really quickly, and it was before we reached orbit. Over.
This is Kenzie, KE1NZY. How long have you been a licensed amateur radio operator, and do you use your license for any other communications besides AnJss? Over.
I've been a licensed radio operator now for probably only about a year and a half in preparation for this space flight, and I've only had the chance to use it up here on the space station, and I've really enjoyed doing that, including just making random contacts across the United States and other countries. So I'm hoping to get to continue that after the mission. Over.
This is Abby. The students of Hudson Memorial School wish to thank you for talking with us today. Over.
Thank you, Hudson Memorial School in New Hampshire. It was fantastic talking with you. Have a great rest of your school year.
Thank you, Serena. N1FD clear.
So again, when you invest in work in schools, not only do you license some kids, but more importantly, you change lives. The impact that these kids have had on these contacts, even if they don't get licensed, is tremendous. I had a story from the gentleman in the upper left there, who's head of the math department in this district and in school, say that one of the kids here who had been a struggling student in math was involved in this contact, came to him afterwards and asked if he could do extra work to improve his math skills, so maybe one day he would have a chance to be an astronaut too. Okay. The other thing that this does is, again, it builds tremendous public support and awareness of the value of amateur radio. There were probably 300 people or so in this room, and about 1,000 more watched it live on live stream. And you know, if I had to go into that town and get a bill passed to protect the rights of hams to put antennas up in HOA, I could get 50 parents to that town meeting in a minute. And if we're ever going to get meaningful legislation passed to protect our rights as hams, we need public support. And this kind of work, when you do it, has benefits in that dimension that are just as important as what you do for the kids. So with that, that's kind of my presentation on mentoring. I hope you found something that you might be interested in doing. You're already doing some great work in this area. And again, you know, it doesn't take an army of people to do these things, just 2 or 3 people who want to try and go out and learn. Start small, learn from as you go, keep improving your programs, and eventually you'll be doing some great work, I think. So with that, does anybody have any questions or comments? I'm going to talk a little bit about the director's election as well here, but before we go there, I want to see if you have any final thoughts, comments, questions, or anything I can maybe encourage you to do.
Yeah, Fred, this is Bob K1YO. Can you hear me?
Yeah, Bob, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question for you. I noticed on one of your slides you mentioned that 60% of the boot camp attendees were general or greater licenses. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Do you have any idea, Fred, of why that might be? I mean, it just struck a note with me, thinking, you know, in knowing the people and been in this amateur business for a long time, but it seems like in the past 6 or 8 years that familiarity or using digital modes and IT type stuff, or, you know, DMR, has probably grown exponentially. And I'm just wondering if we left some of the older folks, you know, like myself and others, back in the dust, back in the earlier RF days, you know, because I think kids today accommodate to stuff from networks to servers and stuff like a fish to water, where the rest of us are like a fish on a bicycle. So just wondering if you thought about that.
That's part of it, Bob, definitely. That, you know, if you looked at our syllabus for boot camp, we talk about FT8, and we also talk about learning CW, by the way, which I think draws as many of those people as does the digital part. But what I've also found, you know, a lot of folks will look at the license and they can say, you know, the thing I really want to do is HF work. And so they'll go through and they'll study for and get their tech, and a lot of times they're general at the same time. We see that happen a lot in our classwork. And then they go and they look for a mentor, and they can't find one. They can't easily engage another ham who will kind of help them figure out, you know, they did all of their studying and they passed their test. But as we all know, passing a multiple choice test doesn't exactly teach you how to do ham radio, right? You need a lot more than that. And the thing I would tell you, and again, remember that of that 40% class, only 25% of those people that got that tech license, best case, maybe only 15, will have enough help and be enough excited about amateur radio after a year that they'll still be on the air. So what this tells us is there's a huge base of people out there, some of them with pretty advanced licenses like generals, that just need to find a mentor to really get started. And maybe they tried and maybe they did a little bit and didn't have a great experience early on with their license, or they just couldn't figure out how to get that dipole up in the tree, or how to ground their station right properly, or what transmitter to get, and they just gave up. And so the whole kind of point of my story tonight is, please try to find a way to reach out to these people and provide some training. You would be amazed at how many people out there that are already licensed that are just looking for somebody to work with them to get them on the air. And when you do this, you get a chance to build a relationship with that person, and they're going to want to do stuff with you. They're going to want to be part of your club. They're going to want to do the other activities. What we find, our club is constantly bringing in new people. We probably license, I don't know, I'll pull a number out of the air. We probably license 60 a year maybe with our classes. And a lot of those people will get so enthusiastic if you help them that they'll turn right around. They'll be out there at field day because they want to do that. They've never done that before. Some of them jump right in and teach license classes, and we're okay with that as long as they're up to speed and do a competent job. Those are the folks that are, everything in amateur radio is new for them, and they're excited about doing stuff, which I think are the kind of hams that hopefully we find. Nope. Other questions or comments on any of this stuff? No? Anything at all? Yeah, go ahead, Neil.
Najum, you're muted.
Najum, go ahead, Najum.
Okay, this is Najum, AB1AOC. If you please, you had a list of all the things, starting with EasyNet at the top.
Yeah, the Tech Night program.
The Tech Night.
Go back there, yep.
And I think I caught a glimpse of Python as maybe I'm...
Yeah, it's probably in here. A couple of our club members have built projects that with Raspberry Pis and Python.
Okay.
Like, some of this stuff down here relates to that. Those have been pretty popular Tech Night topics, absolutely.
Okay.
So, and by the way we did this, we just brainstormed everything that anybody thought was interesting, and then we gave that list back to our members in a poll and let them prioritize what they wanted to hear, and we just knocked them off in order. The stuff that people wanted to hear most, for some reason, everybody was curious about EasyNet to start with. I'm not sure why. That was our first Tech Night. We went in, we had everybody bring laptops and install EasyNet in advance, and we had to model a dipole. That was that Tech Night. We taught everybody there how to do that in real time.
Because I did one EasyNet presentation maybe 3-4 years ago. I'm surprised people, it shows like the bar chart. That was the highest topic requested.
Yep. And as any of us who build our own antennas or even tried to figure out how to put one up, EasyNet's a very powerful tool to use to do that. So hands-on is good on these activities too as we come out of COVID. One we did on surface mount soldering that the gentleman that ran it brought in a whole bunch of microscopes and heat guns and all that, and a bunch of resistors that were big enough that you could handle them with the tweezers. And we basically spent a night learning how to solder them on the boards. So that one, the surface mount one, was actually a hands-on Tech Night. So the more you can make these things be demonstrations and less, kind of PowerPoint presentations, the better. That's what we try and do.
Okay.
They're really a lot of fun. Other questions or comments? No. All right. So I'm going to make this part short because I'm sure if you all are anywhere nearly as tired of this election as I am, you're not going to want to hear a lot of electioneering stuff. So as you all probably know, or many of you know, I am running to become the next New England ARL director. And I just want to share a little bit about what I'm doing and why I'm doing this. So you probably figured this out now, but I think bringing new people into amateur radio is very, very important. It's probably the best way to solve a wide range of problems that the ARL and that amateur radio is facing that I know of. It's affecting emergency communications. It's affecting contesting. It's affecting DXing. It's affecting all of us. It really is. And it's also, more importantly, really hurting the ARL. Along with that, I think building positive public support and awareness for amateur. You know, how many times have you heard somebody say, oh, that amateur radio thing, do they still do that? It just breaks my heart every time I hear somebody say that. And a lot of the work that we're talking about doing with mentoring, particularly when you touch schools or you know, you do it in a public setting like Field Day, really goes a long way, maybe almost further, to build public awareness and support for amateur radio. And you know, if we're going to protect our spectrum, we're actually going to get some of the bills that people have written passed into law, we really need that public support. The other thing I think is really important, and this is not a new issue, is the ARL is not doing a good enough job listening to its members. It's doing, you know, I kind of say we're doing a little bit too much broadcasting and not enough tuning the bands. So in my mind, what communications is really about is listening to people and trying to act on their concerns and make things happen for them. I've done one town hall meeting already to try to get this kind of input. I'm doing a second one on October 6th, which is next Wednesday. I'll give you a link at the end if you want to be part of that. I'm very much committed to making that an ongoing process after I'm elected. And then lastly, I believe that you all need to be part of the solution. Clubs and groups of folks, you know, as good as the people on the staff at headquarters are, there aren't near enough of them to do any of these, solve any of these problems effectively without all of you. So my approach to being director is I'm going to work hard to make the ARL work better and solve its problems. And there's a ton of that needs to be done. But I'm also going to work to get all of you involved together to work on things like mentoring and bringing new people in amateur radio, positive public support for amateur radio, work in schools, all that kind of stuff. I think your director needs to be more than just going to board meetings and tinkering with how the ARL works. That's kind of like table stakes in my mind. I've got a great team of people that are working with me to figure out what to do. Larry's part of that team. I'm sure there's some Phil Temples, our vice directors, helping me. Rob Macedo, Mr. Skywarn and Aries in New England is helping me. Marcia Ford, Rob Lyden, Ray LaJoy, folks who have experience as section managers are here as well. These folks are going to be part of my team as director, and this is going to enable me to attack and work on a whole broad range of problems at the same time. And you know, we're kind of at a turning point with the situation with amateur radio where we can't afford to work one thing and take at a time and take our time anymore. We got to attack all the big stuff at once. Lastly, I have a lot of experience as a business executive, and I've been on both sides of the board equation. I've been a C-level exec that had to work with a board, and I've also been responsible for setting the agenda for all the people on a major industry board, AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, all the cellular and telecom equipment vendors in the world, literally. We're on a board called AnJss, and my job on that board was to work with all of them, get them to agree on projects to work and solve problems. That was not an easy thing to do, and I think it's very relevant experience to my role as a director on the ARL board. I published a 100-day plan. You know, every job I've ever had as an executive came with an understanding that I had 100 days to prove I could do the job or I would be fired and replaced. That's how it works when you have real leadership responsibility. And I think a job as important as being an ARL director should have that same kind of commitment. So here's my 100-day plan as director. This is the stuff that I am committing and expect you to hold me accountable for as director and getting done in the first 100 days. Outreach to every single board member to begin building that consensus, an effective communication process that involves all of you on a regular basis to get input and take action. I'm planning to appoint 4 assistant directors to work across the field staff and clubs and individual hands in New England to try to get programs working that we can bring back into the ARL as solutions to problems. And I think you're my 28th club meeting in the last 3 months. And that's a really important part of this. And it's not going to stop. I'm already scheduling these past the election, assuming that I'm going to be successful. And even if I'm not, I'll still do them. But I'm going to personally commit to make at least 6 of these a quarter. If people stay on Zoom, I can probably do many more times that. And New England's a pretty big place, so if I got to get my car for every one of these, 6 it may be my limit. But I'm also going to expect every my assistant directors to do the same thing. And you know, lastly, folks have asked me, you know, Fred, why are you doing this? Well, one reason I'm doing it is all those people on that team asked me to do it. and get involved and try to make a difference. But more importantly, I really believe amateur radio changes lives. Amateur radio made a big difference in my life. I grew up in a very poor setting where I would not have done any of the stuff in my career had it not been for an uncle who got me involved in amateur radio at a very young age and really set the whole direction for my career and my life. And I know from all the people I've spoken with, I bet many of you have that same kind of story in your life where amateur radio set you on a career path. My goal in retirement, and I am retired, is very simple. I want to make that life-changing experience through amateur radio happen for as many people as I possibly can. I've spent the last 5 years of my life doing nothing but that, and I believe as director I can do it on a bigger scale and help more people. Just a couple closing things, and I'll take some questions. If you'd like to be part of that town hall next Wednesday, go to ab1oc.org/town hall and you can sign up and get the link. That's going to be an open Q&A. You can submit questions in advance, but we're mostly going to be taking questions live in that one, and trying to get as much input, learn what's on people's minds, and also give folks a chance to understand what I'm about. You can reach me anytime at ab1oc@arl.net. I do email and answer messages from folks who have questions or concerns every single day. If you'd like to see the first town hall, you can see it at ab1oc.org/first town hall if you don't want to take the time to hear the second one. So with that, does anybody have any questions? And by the way, the last election for director was decided, I think, by 49 votes. The ballots went out in the mail today. You have till November 19th to fill out your ballot and get it back to headquarters. Your vote is very, very important. So no matter who you think should be the next director, spend some time, look at the candidates, and please, please cast your vote. It's a very important time for amateur radio and for the ARRL. And I think whoever gets this job next should represent what you all want to have done. So any questions, comments, concerns?
But I got a question. I'm a life member of the league for been a ham for 55 years now. But you know, I'm wondering if you've had a chance to interact with some of the other board members on the league. It seems to me that it's like, you know, we have a organization run by a bunch of like old men that think old and, you know, are not bold enough to really face the kind of challenges today. So I'm wondering if you see that there's other like-minded people, or you've run into other like-minded people at the league. You know, the people that actually, you know, do the work inside are pretty committed, but I'm just wondering about some of the leadership.
Yeah, that's a great question. So yes, I've already started engaging some of the other directors. The directors need to be careful because they're not allowed to partake in elections directly. I'm sure you understand that. I have a list of who I think are the people who are on the page of generating some real change here. And I've already talked to 2 of those folks. I've talked to some of there are folks who are not directors, but who have a big influence, president, vice president, second vice president. I've had some conversations with some of those people. I've also gotten some direct feedback from some of the staff members inside the organization at headquarters and learn a lot about what's going on there. And there's definitely some work to be done. So yes, do I think we can change this? You know, here's what my experience is with that industry board. If you work with people in a setting like this and understand what their concerns are, you will find that there's a lot of common ground. Where you get stuck is on how to address the issues and priorities, okay? So what you need to do, I think, is spend time, understand what people think needs to get done, and then try to craft creatively solutions that will let those people collaborate and actually do something. Maybe it isn't all that everybody wants, or even what they thought they needed to do, but you can often find enough common ground to get people started. And once folks start to make progress on an issue and find that common ground, you can build on that. That's one way to do it. The other way that I think is going to be important, this goes back to why I think you all and the folks that are actually not board members, but ARL members are so important. There's 2 ways to make something change in the ARL. You can work in the board, form a committee, study it for a year and a half, go out and hire an expensive person, And sometimes you'll get it right, and sometimes you don't. Another way is to do kind of like what we did with boot camp. You get 2 or 3 folks together, you start building a program, and this model might be 2 or 3 clubs. You get it working, you fine tune it, you get a lot of people involved in it, and then you take that to the ARL and say, here ARL, do you want to publicize this? Here's a program that's working. That's how we did Ham Bootcamp. As of today, we've had 750 people go through Ham Bootcamp. I've had participants in 23 states and in 3 countries outside the US, and it's a very effective program. The ARL publicizes it well, and we're starting to involve more clubs in it, in doing it. So you tell me, which model is really going to generate fast change and, more importantly, effective change? Well, they're both important. And, you know, as a director, it's important to work in the process effectively. And I think I have the experience to be good at that. But there's so much more we can do through all of you. And one of the things that always bothered me about the previous directors is they never seemed interested in engaging people in the division to work on the problems and actually create the solutions. And if I manage to get this job, we're going to be all about doing that. So hopefully that's answers your question.
Yeah, it does it. You know, I've been on various boards, and I think sometimes structurally the boards are just ineffective because nobody communicates between the quarterly meetings or whatever. And, you know, and many of them just rubber stamp whatever agenda is put before them. So I'd like to see some more, you know, proactive change.
Well, I'm pretty good at stirring pots. If you check me out a little bit, you know, both in my professional life, my job in most settings as an executive was to fix things that were broken and generate change. I'm pretty good at that. If you take a look at my LinkedIn page, which you know you can find from that elect.ab1oc.org route, you'll get a sense of what some of those jobs were. One of the jobs that I had responsibility for was to create a division out of a whole bunch of companies that Alcatel-Lucent or Lucent Technologies bought up here in New England, and quite frankly botched the integration so badly that a lot of the people were very upset and didn't really want to be part of the company, and managed to turn that into over a $300 million a year business of 750 employees that was pretty successful. So I you know, every situation's different, Gary, and I'm sure the ARL board's going to have a unique set of challenges, but I've had some practice at this, and I think I have some skills that will help here.
Great. Well, we're looking forward to seeing you in that position.
I hope it works out. Please vote. I need your help to get there. Other questions or comments or feedback for me? I know it's getting a little late. I don't want to wear out my welcome too much. Anything
Looks good.
else?
Looks
right.
good. Thank you
All right,
very
guys,
much, Fred.
Thank you all very, very much. And hopefully I'll be able to come back here again, and you know we'll talk about some other stuff as well in a month or so.
Thank you for joining us, and maybe next time. I know you visited with us a number of years ago in person, and hopefully sometime in the future in person again.
That'd be great, Larry.
Thank you very much for joining us tonight. Any last minute questions for Fred before we move on? Okay. All right. So moving on, once again, reminder, the HCRA holiday party is December 6th. Full information is in the October Zero Beat. You can get that on hcra.org under Zero Beat for 2021. We're hoping to have a good crowd of 50 people at least. In the past, when we've held it, we've had 75 to 80 people. And though times are a little different now, it's still going to be a good thing, a lot of fun. And if you're not vaccinated, you're not invited, plain and simple. Hate to be straightforward and rude like that, but everybody's safety is here. And if you're vaccinated, you're more than welcome. And also in the past, we've had questions about young hams. Young hams are invited and well-behaved kids. I don't want to hear any screaming babies, but if you've got well-behaved kids, they're more than welcome to join us. My son joined us when he got his license at age 11 and came to a number of them. And at that time, there was Venture Crew. DX was with us too. Young ones are welcome to join us and have a lot of fun. So that's December 6th. It's a Monday night, 6:30 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. There is a pay bar that you're welcome to. And like I said, the food is really good. The conversation is great. The atmosphere is fantastic. You can't go wrong. Other than that, we've got Gary. You said Bob N1NUG is going to speak in November. Do you have a subject for him yet? You're muted.
No, I don't. But he was going to think about it, and I'll reach out with him to him this week. And we at least want to have it in 0 beat.
Yes,
So.
yes, most certainly, most certainly. Okay, well, Bob is Dwayne's brother-in-law. He does a YouTube channel called 741. Is it? Is that what it is? He talks about all sorts of different things from engines to ham radio to fox hunting to POTA to everything else and everything and anything. Interesting guy, does a lot of things, has a lot of interests, and he'll be joining us in some form in November. And then I don't have the list in front of me. Gary, do you know who the speakers are for January and February?
February, I don't have January's right in front of me. February is DX Engineering, and they're going to be, they were going to do something on digital, but I think they're going to do something on DXing right now. So depends on who they have available. Charlie, you had a question?
Yeah, just a reminder for January. I'm actually the speaker for January. I'll be doing this big pile of stuff behind me.
Sorry, Charlie. Sorry,
That's
Charlie.
All right. Yeah, but on Go boxes and power and all sorts.
That's right. All I could say is we had one of those senior moments, especially looking right at you.
No problem.
I know we have show and tell coming up, and again, I don't have it in front of me. That's either March or April, and some other interesting things in the works. So if you have ideas or you have something you want to see presented or whatnot, talk to Gary, AA1UE, and we'll see if we can put that together. And I think that's about it. Any other comments or announcements or questions from anyone? Fred?
Yeah, just a real quick one. I did drop a link where you all can download the presentation PDF in the chat if you want to do that. So it's there if you need it. Want to take a closer look.
Excellent. Excellent. We'll see if we'll get that up on our website too. I want to thank all you guys for everyone for coming out tonight. I know some of you are listening on your cell phone, some are mobile, some are home. It's down to 48 degrees here. Hopefully it's warmer where you are. And thankfully I'm not outside or in my camper tonight, but appreciate you all coming out and joining us and or staying home and joining us. As I mentioned, we're still working on getting a in-person meeting to be a possibility. We've got some activities going on, but not in person yet. And somebody gave me a lead earlier today, which I have to follow up on as a possible alternate site for meetings. So we'll see if that's something that could pan out. I think that's it. Last call for comments or anything. No, everybody have a great weekend, a safe weekend, and
Looks like Ken might have one.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ken, go ahead.
Yeah, just a reminder about to watch for the announcements on the Fox boxes and the Fox hunts. There will be coming up.
Yeah, I hope to get Fox Box 2 hit in this weekend. If not tomorrow afternoon, then maybe Sunday. And somewhere in the general Springfield area. It's Fox Box 2 seems to be working extremely well. Its range of hearing is much better than Fox Box 1. And I guess the range of hearing it also is much better too. Right now it's driving around in the back seat of my car, and so I'll find a nice spot to lock it down. Somebody else had a question? No. Oh, okay. All right. Thanks everyone. Everybody have a good evening. Hopefully we'll hear you on the bands. Oh, go ahead, Fred.
No, I was just going to say good night.
Yeah, thank you, Fred. Great presentation.
Good night, everybody. 73.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening.
Good night, all.
Stay safe.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Good meeting, Larry. Thank you. 73.